Regrets? I have a few. How could I not? Founding a startup is the most intense professional experience you can have. When everything is your responsibility, the job is always a sprint. But see, I've been sprinting now with Blaze for 5 years. That's the longest I've had any job in my career. And given our trajectory, it's likely I'll be doing it for another 5, and if I'm lucky, 10 more years, which means it's also a marathon. It's like sprinting a marathon. Nobody can do everything perfectly at that pace. It's hard to do something this intense without accumulating regrets. But you also accumulate lessons. And if you do it right, the regrets contain lessons. So today I'm going to do something vulnerable and share the top 5 biggest regrets I have from my first 5 years at Blaze. Regret 1, raising too much money. I'm not going to lie, raising a lot of money is really exciting. It's a signifier of success, often before you have any actual sales to point to. And it feels good when investors show confidence in you. But it can also be distracting. The funding takes on a life of its own. And when you have a high valuation, you have high expectations, which means you have a high chance of disappointing people. And it feels terrible when you do. Venture capital is rocket fuel for businesses. And once you're loaded up with rocket fuel, you only have 2 options. Make it into orbit or go down in flames. It feels good to raise big, but it comes with a lot of pressure. And not every business needs rocket fuel, especially early on. If I had to do it over again, I'd start a little slower and wait to raise big amounts until we really needed it for our business goals. Regret 2, building too much. So we raised a bunch of money, and then we hired a bunch of people, and then we tried to build a bunch of features. We overbuilt. We tried to stuff everything into our product instead of trying to find the few things that really matter to our customers. It's not just that building more features takes more time. It's that more complex products are also harder to sell. So overbuilding costs you on both sides. It takes longer to get a product to market, and it's hard to explain that product once it's out there. It's also harder to pivot a more complex product. So today, we're trying not to build every feature. We're trying to perfect the few features that really matter to our users. How do we know what those are? That brings us to regret number 3, taking too long to launch. Initially, we thought we had a pretty good idea that mattered because we had talked to a lot of potential customers, and they told us what might be useful to them, and it was a long list. See regret number 2. But there's no substitute for actually shipping something, for actually seeing which features customers use and which they don't. It's hard to imagine how you're going to use something. It's hard for the internal team, like our product designers and engineers, and it's hard for our end users. The best way to learn what actually matters is to get people actually using the product. And to do that, you have to ship it, even if it's not done. And one small quick tip, it will never be done. As long as your product is out in the world, you'll be improving it. But you can't really start improving it until it's out there. We didn't have traction early on, but we never knew if it was because we didn't build enough or because people didn't want what we built. Only after making it widely available did we start to really figure out what mattered to our customers, because that's when they figured out what mattered at scale. Next time around, I'm going to launch widely as soon as possible. Regret 4, delegating too soon. This one's a bit embarrassing because at the time I thought I was being a mature CEO. I thought I was avoiding the pitfalls of micromanagement. I thought I was empowering people. I wasn't. Early on, I hired a team to manage product. But the truth is the initial product visions have to come from the founder. I also hired a team to do marketing, but no one can sell the product like the founder can. And if the founder can't sell the product, nobody will. When a company gets bigger, yes, a leader needs to delegate. You can't do everything forever. But in the early days, you can do a lot as a founder. And you should do a lot as a founder because it's your sprint. It's your marathon. And no one is going to care as much as you. And where I thought I was empowering people, I was actually holding them back because the teams need the product and the brand vision to come from me in order to know what they were managing. Now I have my hands in everything. And that doesn't mean micromanaging. It means making sure my company has my imprint on everything that matters and making sure your team has no questions about what matters so that they can do their job better. Regret 5, not focusing on making money. There are many metrics you could use to track the success of your business. Money raised, the size of your team, the number of demos, the number of users. And initially, we tracked all of those things. But there's only one number that really counts, your net revenue. In other words, are you making a profit? Focusing on profitability is immensely clarifying. To make a profit, you first have to make revenue. And that means making a product people really want. And then you have to figure out how to grow it efficiently, which means figuring out your marketing and your distribution while keeping costs down. It's so easy to distract yourself with all kinds of indirect measurements, but in the end, a business has to make money. If I had to do it again, I'd focus on that sooner. Okay, that was a little scary, but there they are. 5 things I regret from the first 5 years. And I'm happy to say I turned each of those regrets into lessons that are helping me in the next stage of my business. Hopefully, you can avoid having the same regrets in yours.